Hey everyone, it's Melanie Johnson here. Thanks for joining us again for another great podcast. We always love having you come and join us and comment and subscribe and share our podcast with everybody. And of course, I'm here with my business partner at Elite Online Publishing, Jenn Foster. Hey, Jenn.
Hey everyone, how's it going today?
Well, I hope everyone's having a fantastic week, and we're here to make your week even better. So, our theme today, what we're talking about is how to reach your maximum potential. If you're a leader, I always say everybody's a leader, right? I tell this quick story of I used to, when I go to these conferences, I'm like, I don't need the leadership thing. I'm not running a big company at the time. I don't need that. And then it dawned on me, I'm the leader of my family. I can be the leader of my friends. I can be the leader of myself. So I think everybody needs to listen to this today. We have Andy Hite with us today, and he is an expert at unleashing your leadership potential and growth. So let's grow together and be awesome leaders today. Thanks, Andy, for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you guys and see where the conversation takes us.
Awesome. Well, Andy, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the coaching business.
Yeah, so I got into the coaching business sort of kicking and screaming. It wasn't my intention. My previous career is in theater, actually. I was a professional actor for many years in the Chicagoland area, and then I transitioned over into producing theater, which I did for about 15 years. How I got into the leadership space is not the typical route. I learned everything not to do to be a good leader from some pretty terrible leaders that made me get very curious on what is leadership and how do we do this effectively and how do we get people to buy in and kind of show up and enjoy what they do and contribute to a greater goal. So I started really learning myself what leadership is, how to do this thing, how to motivate people, how to create buy-in. And then I ended up getting pretty good at it in my own life, and people would ask me for advice. And so I learned about this thing called coaching. So I sort of started coaching on the side. And as fate has it, I felt this strong pull to move from that previous career into this space. So my wife and I sat down at dinner one evening several years ago and tried to map out a path to do it. And we just jumped off the deep end, hung a shingle, and here we are about 5 years later talking to you guys.
Awesome. Well, talk to us a little bit. I know you talk about like this work-life balance in a way, or that dance between work
Yeah.
and your life. And how does that transcend into leadership?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk out in the world about work-life balance. I think that is a bit of a trap because the truth of the matter is, if we're to look at balance, that means 50-50, right? A scale is going to have equal parts. And I just don't think that is attainable nowadays. I think it's more of a dance. Sometimes work leads, sometimes life leads, and we just have to kind of I always say kind of like a surfer with a wave, ride what is there as gracefully as possible and hopefully making some art out of it. In terms of how this translates into leadership, I think it's, as leaders, we have to be malleable. We have to not only have an agenda, but we have to align ourselves with what is. And that's sort of like that dance that we talk about. And we want to make sure that we have a clear goal, a clear mission, and then bringing those around us on this journey with us. I love how you said earlier, leadership just isn't if you're CEO of a company. I believe anyone in the world can be a leader, and if called, should, because that just means that we're up to something bigger and we want to bring people along with us and pull out the best in everyone. So yeah, that's how I would connect it.
Yeah. So what kind of tips do you have for, like, say you do just want to lead your family or want to lead a group of people, how can you get them motivated? Like, how do you lead them into the same passion and stuff that you have, you know?
Yeah, great question. What I talk a lot about in my work is first self-leadership. Melanie, you mentioned that. I believe that good leaders go first, right? I can't necessarily show you around Houston because I've never been there, right? I don't know the terrain. I don't know the good restaurants and so I believe that good leaders do the work on themselves first. And when that happens, we can then impart that on the people around us, whether that be family, whether that be employees, whether that be neighbors or children. And so focusing in on oneself first and growing as a human, as a leader, is step number one.
I really believe too, it's like you say, leading yourself, but also by example of what you're doing,
Yeah.
especially in the family space. I remember my kids were teenagers and we were out to after a soccer game or something. All the parents were at a Mexican restaurant. And so these kids are like 13, 14 years old, and all the parents are having margaritas. And then they're putting their kids in the car with them, but then they're going to
Oof.
tell their kids when you're 16, don't drink and drive.
Yeah.
They're like, well, but you did it.
Yeah.
Why? Like you're not leading, you've got to do not just the words, it has to be your actions as well. And
Yeah.
it's always easy to have the actions. How do you keep yourself on track to consistently be a good leader by your words, examples?
Excellent point. I think it really is looking in the mirror first, right? If I want someone in my life, whether that be an employee or a family member or whomever, to behave in a certain way, how do I go first? How do I embody that? I think
Yeah.
leadership is not always easy because it does require self-awareness. It requires self-work. But those that sign up for it and actually do the work, man, I've seen literally lives change, businesses change because of it.
Mhm.
I
I'm
love
very
that.
passionate about leadership because I really do. It might sound corny. I think it can change the world.
Yeah. Well, and that example, like leading by example, like Melanie was talking about, that kind of just like helps them to see your vision and passion. So it kind of
Yeah.
answers that question. Like if you just showing them just by you being passionate
Yeah.
could spark their passion.
Yeah. Do as I say, not as I do is not a leadership tactic. Right. And it never, I mean, I go into businesses all the time and I see leaders that lead that way. And what that creates is just a culture of mistrust where everyone's not rowing in the same direction because the leadership team aren't actually rallying in a way that calls people forward. And that's what's required.
How do you transcend leadership into achieving your goals, getting over those hurdles? And because you talk about achieve the impossible goals.
Yeah. It's really, I love this conversation because this is like the best part of what I do. It's really about being self-reflective, right? Oftentimes, the thing that's holding us back, I talk in terms of business often, right? If there's a business that is stagnating or has a bottleneck, it's always because of the founder or the leadership team, always.
Mhm.
And it requires some amount of self-reflection, self-awareness. What is the thing that we're doing or not doing that is getting in our way? That can be thoughts, beliefs, perspectives, attitudes.
Mhm.
And so a lot of what we do in coaching is we identify those what we call blind spots, those things that are kind of tethering us to the ground and not allowing us to move forward, so that when we shine a flashlight on it, we then have awareness and create some change.
Mhm.
And so much of it, whether it is an individual or an organization, it requires self-awareness and self-reflection, and then doing the work to change those things that might be holding us back.
Yeah. Let's switch a little bit to some time management because I know as a leader, you have to know how to manage your time.
Yeah.
What do you coach people on, or what kind of tips do you give them on time management?
Yeah. First off, we kind of look to see what is creating that bottleneck. Oftentimes, what I find with leaders is there's some flavor of perfectionism or controlling nature or hypervigilance, something that is actually creating the overuse of time, right? So take, for example, a perfectionist. If the report has to be perfect or the sales presentation has to be perfect, they're going to spend more time on that than ultimately what is necessary. Right.
Mhm.
And so we have to start to work at that blind spot to say, well, what is the fear that's creating the perfectionism or the controlling nature, and start to loosen the grip of that. And then they'll start to appreciate another 2, 5, 10 hours a week that was being wasted in trying to hyper focus on something that may not need that level of focus, as an example.
Mhm.
I think that's good advice. We all struggle with, getting away the distractions in our life.
Yeah.
Uh, the pinging, the texting, and this happens to me all the time. I'm going to text somebody something, and then I have 3 text messages that are in there. I answer those, and I forget that I was even on a mission to do something else when I
Yeah.
picked up the phone.
Well, and I'll out myself a little bit. Like, I am a slave to this little device.
Yeah.
And truly, because I've worked on this with my coach a little bit, it's because I'm a little bit of afraid of missing an opportunity, or I'm a bit of a people pleaser, right? Like not responding to someone in the right time frame, and so that is just a bit of a fear or a blind spot within me that has me fritter away too much time being a slave to this thing. So we all have a variety of those sort of habits that kind of get in the way of our appropriate time management.
Yeah, I do find that if I put my phone on airplane mode when I have a specific focus or task I want to accomplish, it really does help because you're not hearing anything. Or if I wear my Apple Watch, then I'm getting all the
You get the
vibrations and
buzz.
I can't focus.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the work that's required, right? Is the
Mhm.
practice of releasing the thing that we think we need. And over time, I call this like getting in the gym of life. That's just working out a new muscle. And in time, it'll become a habit.
How do you coach people when, the economy has been so topsy-turvy, right? And then the media is fear mongering us. It's coming, the big recession. And so you're like, is it this week? Is it next week? And we live in a time of kind of uncertainty. How
Mhm.
does or keep themselves motivated, or even, sometimes like I'm talked to my friend yesterday who's in the construction business. He's like, my business has gone down where I used to get 4 calls a day. I'm getting only 4 calls a week, maybe.
Yeah.
So how do you keep your motivation and positivity and still be a great leader during these, where your business might take a downturn?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple things to unpack there. The first, and I had a conversation with a client last week. She was freaking out because the numbers weren't what she wanted them to be. And part of what we had to do is, sometimes we as humans, we are built to protect ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
so that draws up so much anxiety because that anxiety motivates us to do something. But the truth of the matter is, oftentimes it's more anxiety producing than it needs to be. So in that case, I said, hey, friend, let's look at the facts of the matter. Because sometimes we can catastrophize or start to worry about things that may happen that probably aren't going to. So let's look at the facts of the matter. And through that exercise, we realized, oh, she's got a 1.5 year runway. She's got so many things that and she clearly was going through a downturn, she could easily weather it, And sometimes the reality is, oh, we are in trouble. I have another client that's in that. And what we do is we, again, look at the facts of the matter. Okay, let's put everything on the table. And what can we do? Because oftentimes the anxiety is produced from uncertainty. And so we try and create as much certainty as we can through an action plan.
Yeah. It's amazing how action and a plan can give you comfort.
Yeah, because then you know what to do. There's nothing that feels worse than kind of sitting there and going, I feel trapped, or I don't know what
Yeah.
to do. I mean, that is super anxiety producing.
It gives you hope. Now you're like,
Yeah,
okay, I have hope.
absolutely.
If I do A, B, C, X, Y, and Z, this could get me out of where I am right now.
That's right.
And movement always, I think, just like exercise, you always feel better afterwards.
Yep.
That you're like, at least I'm being proactive. I'm not hiding under the covers when something bad is happening to me.
Yeah. This little thing between our ears is really good at creating catastrophes, right? Oh no, we're going to go bankrupt. And oftentimes it will way go past what is actually possible. And so really what we want to do is calm ourselves a little bit to look at the facts of the matter. And typically when we can get to the facts, it's not as bad as we may think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and I like that when you do have an action plan, you have that faith and that belief that, hey, if I take these actions and this is going to happen, where before you're just like anxiety and stress and I don't know what's going to, how to fix this.
Yeah, like you said, Melanie, action and a plan create some certainty, which calms the nerves a little bit.
Yeah. What would
Mhm.
you say to a young student even, or a parent who has a young student of kind of some skills that they should get along the way while they're going on their journey from high school through college and their first job?
What I wish somebody would have told me when I was a 20-year-old or 22-year-old is give yourself permission to fail. Don't think you have to get it right because you're just wasting so much learning growth opportunity, right? A 22-year-old could fail, start businesses and fail multiple times over, hit it in the early 30s and just crush it in life. They have so much time. So don't
Mm.
take it so seriously and give yourself permission to try a bunch of different things.
I'll
Mhm.
say Sarah Blakely used to say her at the dinner table, her dad wouldn't say, what did what went right today? What were your wins? He'd always say, I
How'd
want
you
to hear
fail?
failures. Yeah, how did you fail? And my oldest son, he's fearless in that way. He says, Mom, I don't care if I fail. I got an education from it. It might have cost me a few $1,000s, but I'm just going to go through and I learn. I got an education and all those things I learned will add into the next thing that I do. It's like building blocks. Every
Yeah.
time you fail, it's a more of a building block to take you to where you're eventually supposed to go.
Yeah. I love Sarah Blakely's story. I use that a lot too, because I think it's so smart. And it shows in some ways how she was able to build a business from 5,000 to 5 billion, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just getting out there in the arena. And God love your child for being able at that young age to give himself the freedom to fail.
Yeah.
We don't learn any lessons from our wins because we know how to do that because we did it. We learn from the stumbles and the falters and the failures. That's where we get the most growth and learning. So doing that early and often, man, what a gift.
Yeah, I love that. Well, tell people where they can go to find you and get more information.
I play around quite a bit on the LinkedIn, easy to find there. Andy Hite, Hite. Also have a page that I've created specifically for your listeners. If you go to scalingminds.com/EEI, that's scalingminds.com, like scaling a business, but your mind.com/EEI. There's some assessments on there that'll help people find some clarity, like entrepreneurial fitness assessment, leadership assessment. And anybody that's interested in doing some coaching, there's a link there. Sign up and let's just do some coaching for free. That's what I love to do the most, is getting in a one-on-one conversation.
All right. I love your URL because the EEI, like it's Elite Expert Insider, right? The
Yes.
EEI, very sexy. Good job on that. I think that's cool. I caught that right away that you did that. So thanks.
Specific for your audience.
Yes, look at the details. See, it's all about the details and feeling special. That
That's
also
right.
makes you a good leader, making other people feel special and included and going that little extra mile
That's right.
to be a good, be a good leader, a good business person, that you're making your customers feel special. And people, I think, really respect that and want to do that in the back end. So we're wrapping up. Thanks so much for coming, Andy. And if anyone's looking to write a book and become a best-selling author, we do that for all of our authors. We're known for making over 300 authors bestsellers, including Wall Street Journal and USA Today. So just reach out to us at eliteonlinepublishing.com and hit that author submission button. Everyone have a fantastic week, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.